Hey everyone, my name is Rafael Rodriguez.
Hey everyone, my name is Ethan Butler.
Yeah, and this is the Untitled Video Game Design Podcast. We'll come up with the name of it later. So today we wanted to be talking about Pokemon battle design right now.
Yeah,
Ethan, do you have
Pokemon
any
battle
opinions
design.
on that? Ooh.
Many opinions. I don't really know where to start because I think we peaked at 2010, to be honest.
You think we peaked at 2010 for Pokemon battles,
We
really?
peaked at 2011, 2012 for visual Pokemon battles, I'd say. Getting the anime
So,
sprites in there was great, but game-wise, 2010 was Heart Gold, Soul Silver, peak Pokemon.
peak Pokemon.
Peak
Okay.
Pokemon. I could regress further. We could go back to XD, greatest Pokemon game of all time.
Ooh, XD all the way back there.
Yeah,
Really?
I
Okay
played a
then.
lot of XD.
Oh, damn. Okay then.
Ooh.
So, well, since we're currently in, like, what, Generation 9 or 10 now?
Yeah, I think it was
Uh,
just Gen 8 recently,
Gen 8,
yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about
It
some of
all
the changes
blends
that
together.
Sword and Shield. It all just blends together. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's just talk about some of the changes they made to Sword and Shield then. So, as you know, everyone was really mad about Dexit. What more
Uh,
people really don't talk about was there was a lot of removal of moves in Pokemon
of
Sword and Shield.
course, yes.
So, a lot of these Pokemon moves like Return, some signature moves like, for example, Vespiquen and her use of Heal Order was removed. And I think what's the most interesting one removed was Hidden Power.
Hidden Power always struck me as weird being removed. I don't quite understand why that went.
See, I find that Hidden Power was a good thing to remove, but
Yeah.
that's mostly because of IV complications in general. So,
Mm,
for those who don't know, Hidden Power is a move whose type changes based on the total sum of a Pokemon's individual values. We'll get more into IVs probably later on in this podcast. But I think that Hidden Power was a good removal just because it was very hard to actually determine as a casual player, and only in competitive was it really useful, right?
mm-hmm.
So let's say Tyranitar is up against, let's say, a darn Ferrothorn, right? He
Gosh
has
darn
hidden power
Ferrothorn.
fire, right?
Yeah.
That just completely destroys a Ferrothorn.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue with that is that you'd have to get an exact level of IVs to even
Yeah.
equate into hidden power fire, and that led to most competitive players to just sort of hack their mons in to get the right IVs, because it's if you want to get the
Mm-hmm.
right IV Pokemon, it's nearly impossible. You'll have to not
Yeah.
only
Well, I mean,
it's
there
a
were
lot
various
easier.
forms of IV training, and I didn't experiment it with myself, but I think in Gen 8 they made it easier.
They did make it easier to get to max IVs.
Ah, okay.
Golden bottle caps have okay, so bottle caps in the games were basically a way to get quote unquote perfect IVs
Mm.
into your Pokemon. But what is really weird about it is that they gave perfect IVs on paper, like the moves would do perfect IVs, but you still had your individual underlying IVs that actually determined your hidden power type.
Okay, that's
That's
interesting.
why I think hidden power was worth the removal because it
Yeah.
added so many complications, right?
Yeah,
Because you can have
it's
a perfect, you can still have a
it,
perfect
as a
IV Pokemon.
move, conceptually, it is very good because it allows you to have sort of an unpredictability to your combat. It's a
Correct.
good strategic advantage. But
Mm-hmm.
to actually access it and make it work is just a nightmare.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
That's why I find that hidden power was competitively wise
Mm.
a sad thing to happen, but in
Yeah.
terms of, let's say, like, what's the word, like casually wise, like it's impossible to manage and impossible to work with.
Mm.
And even then, I I don't believe that they actually had very good indication of what type of hidden power you had in the games, right? Like the effects of the actual move were still the same color no matter what the type was, and you just had to sort of fish around to guess, like, oh, is this poison type? Is this dark type? Oh, I just did a super effective on grass. Oh, it's probably fire, right? No, it's ice. That's what I mean, right? Like it was very
Yeah.
hard to tell what you wanted.
To be fair, that's why a lot of people play Showdown because it kind of fixes that issue of not knowing what it is. And
Yes, that's why Showdown's so good.
I know, Showdown is the best. Showdown is the only competitive I play, and that's always just the random battles.
Hmm.
So I don't know anything about building a good comp and doing IVs and EVs, so that's all on you, man. But
I'm happy to do that. For
I'm,
reference, I've been IV training since what, Generation 4 to Generation
jeez,
6. Still Sun and Moon, basically.
yeah, playing Pokemon wise. I'm more a casual player than anything. I only usually play competitive when people actually ask me to.
Hmm.
Um, I do see that there's an inherent like competitive value to removing stuff, not only the moves but the Pokemon themselves. It actually shook up the tier list of the game quite a bit to have Pokemon Thanos snapped out of existence. Honestly,
Did you want to talk? So, yeah, I do agree that that does make good sense that Dexit did occur, because let's be honest, we're over 500 Pokemon now, if I remember correctly. And,
over
oh
500
boy,
Pokemon. You have been missing out on
yeah,
a lot. I
it's
think
just,
we're like 800 now.
are we at, oh my gosh, sorry, I haven't keeping a total count of how many Pokemon there were. I
How
just sort
many?
of catch
Let
without
me
thought.
Google that right now. Pokemon amount. Yeah,
What do you got?
807.
Gosh, we are new levels, new
Yes.
levels. But the the amount of Pokemon that we have in the games as of right now is super hard to balance from a
Yeah.
gameplay standpoint. But the issue I have with the fact that we did lose some of them
Hmm.
is the fact that the whole point of Pokemon is that you have your personal favorite, right?
Yes, I
I'm
can
pretty
agree with that.
sure.
Like
Yeah.
last generation, Gen 7, they introduced regional variants. Alolan Marowak
Hmm.
became really quickly one of my favorite Pokemon, and then immediately next gen gone. That
I
sucked.
Yeah, that sucks. Like, what's it called? Just the thought of losing your what you considered your best friend
Hmm.
for from time in immemorium, from
Yeah.
when you were like a child playing Gen 1, transferring them all the way up, and then all of a sudden just gone.
I stopped transferring after Gen 5 because getting them into Gen 6 and 7 was just a pain at that point, and you got to pay for Pokemon Bank and all that. So, what I've been doing
Bit the
was
bullet.
just like I had an Oshawott, right, in Gen 5.
Yes.
So, if I get an Oshawott in Gen 9, I just call it the same thing and pretend it's the same one.
You're the real one. You're
The one that's
just
just slowly dying on my Black 2
I'm just
cartridge is
imagining
just the
you
fake one.
just I imagine you just like, it's like leaving your son behind, and then you're picking up another son for like a play place. I'd be
Yeah.
like, you're now Charlie.
Just, you're
You're
telling
the
me
new
I just
Charlie.
stole a kid. That's what you're telling me.
I'm not saying you stole a kid. I'm
You're
just implying you
implying.
did. Okay, now back to the main topic. Let's make it back to the main topic. So, do you think that the removal of like moves like signature moves from Pokemon and like return and hidden power are a good removal, or do you think there's some design space that could have worked on with those
I
moves?
think it's honestly circumstantial. Something like Return, I'm 50-50 on because it's a really good, really powerful move, but at the same time, in most Pokemon games, you kind of get it early and it's based off friendship value. So putting it on like your starter, it kind of makes it busted. It's just a
Hmm.
very hard move to bounce, and when translating that into competitive, how does that really stack up?
In terms of competitive, it's usually used on normal types as a
Yeah.
huge hitter, or
Hmm.
even just Pokemon who don't have good access to moves. It's not an OU staple, like an overuse staple, but
Yeah.
more lower level, right? Because it just provides a huge punch to a lot of people.
Hmm.
I think the removal of return, hidden power, and a lot of the signature moves just remove a lot of clutter, right?
Yeah.
Especially like, think about it memory wise. How many Pokemon are using heal order? I'm just gonna keep on making this one reference to
Yeah,
Vespiquen,
that
but
you just really hate Vespiquen. To be
no,
honest, I
I
remember
I, I
heal.
really liked heal order. I liked Vespiquen and the
Really,
idea
I
of just
remember
like,
heal ordered from playing Gen 4, and it annoyed the hell out of me
I
just to
play
fight
stall,
it.
she's stall. I like
Oh,
it,
I see.
but
You're scum. Next thing you're
I
gonna be
am
telling me you
scum.
come in with the para hacks.
No, no, no.
No,
I
no,
use
no.
I
You
use
just
life
use
score.
freeze.
Gosh, but no, no, no. What I'm trying to say is like, like how many Pokemon really use their signature move? Like
Yeah,
signature moves are
I
one
agree.
or
There
two
is like a
Pokemon
lot
at
of clutter
most.
where there's Pokemon who only have that one move that can just,
Mm.
you know, be discarded.
I, I believe Flying Press was also removed, if I remember correctly, and that was like a Hawlucha exclusive move.
Yeah. Which I
Like
am a little bit bummed about just because Hallelujah is cool, but at the same time, I don't even know if he was in Gen 8 is the thing.
I don't believe so. I don't. I didn't catch 100% of the Pokemon Sword Shield yet, so I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure. But yeah, no. Like I think that the removal of a lot of these moves are actually quite good, just for a sort of clean, let's start anew type of
Hmm.
thing, right?
Yeah, it's a lot better from a game design and programming perspective.
Just because like I'm the
It's not an
games feel
insignificant
bad.
amount of ones and zeros being dedicated to that. Let's just put it
It's true.
simply.
It's true. I mean, as long as they're using like a base quote unquote move class with
Well,
a
yeah,
type
I assume there's a
specifier.
base move class, but then you also have to think about all the particle effects, usually signature moves, even in the new games, with very little animations, usually have their own unique animation still.
Yeah, they did have their own unique like heal order would from Gen 4 would just summon a bunch of bees
Hmm.
on the character and then heal them. Okay, I need to stop with this heal order shit. But yeah, no. So overall consensus is Pokemon moves that are removed
Yeah.
in the new Sword and Shield. I think, and we think rather,
Mm.
it was worth it, right?
Yeah.
Did you have anything you want to bring up specifically as well?
About the moves, not too much. I do really just want to get on the topic of everyone's favorite, the how every gen has its own unique gimmick, and I despise it.
Okay, when you say
Oh,
gimmick, you mean battle gimmick, right?
you know exactly what I mean.
Let's assume I don't right now.
Let's
Explain to
assume you
me.
don't. All right, let's talk about Mega Evolutions, Z moves, Dynamax, Gigantamax, and all the headaches I have.
Ooh, tell me about your headaches then, sir.
Ooh, we can't wait. So, where do we want to start? I suppose Mega Evolution was the
Was the first
progenitor of
one.
all this, first off, and also kind of just the best one that they designed. Not only was it visually interesting and cool to have your Pokemon,
Mega
but yeah,
Evolutions.
from a mechanical perspective, I always found Mega Evolutions interesting, not only from a visual standpoint, but just kind of from a gameplay standpoint. I don't think that Pokemon ever really leapt at the opportunities it presented in its main games, though. There were never really enough Mega Evolutions to be able to, like, really have an interesting sort of battle going on. Let's say it's the same problem with Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing,
Dynamaxing.
right? If
Yes.
someone throws out a Charizard, you're immediately going to go, oh, they're going to, Gigantamax the Charizard. It's not
A surprise.
really. Yeah, it's not a surprise. I'm just going to OHKO them. That was the major problem with the actual story mode of these games, was that there was no unpredictability. You could always tell when something was about to happen and just counter it before it does, and it makes all the battles just seem kind of boring and lame from a story perspective. It gets a little bit trickier in competitive because
You
people
build your team
design their
around them.
teams better, but yeah, it just never worked out. In comparison to something like, I'm gonna bring this up when talking about Pokemon a lot. Pokemon Insurgents, which is a extremely good fan game, which did regional variants before Pokemon did. But what they did in Insurgents was pretty much they like quadrupled, septupled the amount of Mega Evolutions. And at one point, pretty much in the game, right around the time you're heading towards Victory Road, everyone has a Mega Evolution. In the main games, they are so sparse, the Pokemon that have Mega Evolutions, Gigantamaxing, right? They're all pre-scripted. There's no just random trainer encounter where they kind of just have a Gyarados and they Mega Evolve it, right?
Yes, yes.
It's always on identifiable characters. And what Insurgents did great was they just kind of gave them to everyone, and with the staggering amount of new Mega Evolutions, that predictability had just gone to the wayside, and you never knew really that all the fights were a lot tougher because you never knew like when and where to Oko, what's about to happen. It was a lot more engaging of a concept and execution.
Mm-hmm. So okay, so what you're trying to say is that like Mega Evolutions Mega Evolutions should have had there should have been more, right? Just
There should have
because
been more. I don't think conceptually they were bad. I can't speak much for competitive gameplay, but from a casual perspective, they were really enjoyable. They just weren't fleshed out enough as a concept.
mm-hmm.
And because of this lack of fleshing it out, they just decided to throw it to the wayside rather than building upon and developing. And you see that a lot with Pokemon's game design. Like, how many different battle mechanics have they shown up over the years? Like, remember triple battles, rotation battles, just gone.
Do you remember inverse battling?
You do not. What the hell is that?
If I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, inverse battling was a thing. Let me just double check if I'm just speaking
Yeah,
out
I
of my
think you're
butt.
just. You absolutely are, even if you are correct right now.
Inverse battle Pokemon X. Yep, it's a thing. If I remember correctly, inverse
Really?
battle was a battle where all rules are contrary. So effectiveness would have the opposite effect.
Uh,
So let's say you had your fire
Interesting.
type and you had a and your opponent had a grass type. You were now in the not very effective when you used a flamethrower on it.
Mm.
So it was like only one place in X and Y had it.
Yeah.
So the idea of just like a lot of these battles were just one and done, or is quite
Mm.
obvious. So you're saying that like Pokemon needs to stop with this like accretion design of just add things and then like
Yeah.
just keep on adding things until something
They
sticks.
add and test things, but then they never take those tests and, develop them.
Mm-hmm. I like to.
I'm glad, particularly that Z moves did not make it back, because unlike Mega Evolution, where there was still some strategy and some leeway,
Mm-hmm.
Z moves just completely killed it. They were a lot less predictable because any Pokemon could use them. Kind of the same thing with Dynamaxing, but the issue with them was they were always guaranteed kills. With Mega Evolution, it was still the Pokemon's, my stats, my typing versus your stats and your typing.
Mm-hmm.
You could have pretty much an ineffective Z move or just neutral effective Z move and still kill something like 10, 20 levels higher than you.
See, I like to throw that away, like throw that and say that Z moves and Mega Evolutions are two good mechanics. And let me
Really, Z
explain.
moves too? Alright.
Yes. Okay. First, let me talk about like Mega Evolution. I think Mega Evolution is great. I think that they should have, instead of having a unique look to each Pokemon, just
Mm-hmm.
allowed each Pokemon to gain an increase of stats in general.
Uh,
So then it would be there. So everyone's favorite Pokemon got their Mega Evolution. Just that some of
mm.
them did get a unique, like how Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing are a thing.
Yes, I can see that. That was actually a good decision on their part for Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing. They
Mm-hmm.
essentially work the same, but some are just like, oh, this
Or more
specific
interesting.
Pokemon is going to get a new form, while this one still gets the increase in buff, but,
Yeah,
you know.
like Snorlax gets a tree on his stomach.
Hmm. It makes all Pokemon viable with that ability now,
Yes, I feel like
rather
that's
than
what
just
they should have done
exclusives.
for Mega Evolution, right?
Yes, I can
Because then
agree to
that would
that.
be more interesting, as well as just give let's say like little Timmy his favorite Caterpie like something good to
Hmm.
interesting to do, right? As well
Absolutely,
as
yeah.
just add like it's not obvious what strategy you're going for, right? Like, yeah,
Hmm.
if you see a Pidgeot, it's gonna evolve. It's gonna mega evolve.
Absolutely.
But if you see a team with like Ferrothorn, Toxapex, Skarmory, and like what's it called? Scroopy or something, right? Like,
Scroopy.
yes, we're putting a baby Pokemon here, but like you don't know what's gonna mega evolve. You know that something
Hmm.
is probably
Yeah.
if they want to be like a good fight, but which one it is and why, not sure. And if you want to do it even more, you can have it so that it's an item restriction too, like Z moves, right?
Hmm.
So then you can only evolve if the Pokemon's holding an item, the right Evo item, and if they do that, then you've restricted that, and they can have a major stat boost, but at the loss of an item. And items are super important in fights, right?
Absolutely. in the casual perspective of Pokemon, they
Hmm.
really aren't. They ignore items like crazy.
Yeah, I really find that items should be used a lot more to show that items
Hmm.
are super important. Like,
Yeah.
imagine if you had a gym battler, like a gym battle, and they had a life orb.
Oh my God. I was thinking more something along the lines of a little bit more basic than, the life orb trick, but just like imagine going to an electric type
Hmm.
gym. So, oh, you go, I'll bring in a ground type so I can be super effective on them. But the electric type Pokemon, they have a balloon on them, right?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good. That's another good option too. But yeah,
Hmm.
sorry. Back
Just
to
something that
the Mega
teaches
Evolution.
the mechanics of the items and that there's more
There's
to
good ones.
battling than just, I'm using a super effective move on you, I'm gonna get an OHKO, which is
Hmm.
what Pokemon has kind of devolved into.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, no, sorry. Back onto Mega Evolutions. I think
Yeah,
that item holding and just everyone can Mega Evolve would be a better choice. Like
yeah,
everyone gets a 15%, like a 10-15% increase of stats. And for people who say like, oh yeah, that's like power creep, we've been reaching power creep with every generation. That's I think it's
yeah,
fine that we're power
absolutely.
creeping to an extent. And I think the fact that everyone can power creep is better than just ev-
Exclusive
exclusive
Pokemon.
Pokemon. Like how many Charizard Mega Evolutions have we gotten, right?
Oh
I
God,
would
don't even.
prefer like my Gligar to have Mega Evolution over,
Hmm.
like, even if it's a bad one, I'd prefer to even have a buff at any time than just being, oh, he's the same. At least I have him still, you know.
Hmm.
I
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
would prefer that every single Pokemon is, in the sense, someone's friend, right?
yeah.
Everyone has their favorite Pokemon,
Hmm.
so just having everyone to Mega Evolve would be good.
Yeah.
Now,
That
let me
is
get
something that Z moves did, right?
yes.
Even
Now,
if they weren't really balanced in and of themselves.
I find that Z moves are actually very important. Like were important in the grand scheme of things, because you're talking about the Oko ability of like the attack Z moves, which if you're playing competitive, right, or just
Yeah.
smart, like you can actually nullify the effects of that very harshly, right?
Hmm.
Because if you have a times 4 resistance to it, a Z move would actually not one hit kill most Pokemon.
Hmm.
Also, you can just, if you already know their enemy's team composition, you already know which Pokemon's your weakest. So then you can get down Mr. President a Z move if you really wanted to.
Fair.
But what really interests me are less about the attacking Z moves and the status effect Z moves,
Ah, of
right?
course.
Because the status effect Z moves are initially different between each one, right?
Hmm.
The one I remember the most, and the one that I think is probably one of the better ones, was Z move Parting Shot, right?
Yeah.
You know what Parting Shot did, right?
I vaguely remember, but tell me anyways.
If I remember correctly, Z move Parting Shot would self-sacrifice the Pokemon using it, and then put a -2 stage on special defense and special attack. If I remember correctly,
Hmm.
it could be attack and special and defense, or double on the two defenses, or double on the two attacks. I don't remember exactly, but it did a double stat reduction on something for the sacrifice of one Pokemon. What Z move Parting Shot did instead is it still did the attack, and it also fully healed the Pokemon in your party.
Huh.
So it
Interesting.
became a far more interesting option in terms of usage, because Z moves,
Hmm.
you still have to sacrifice a Pokemon item, right? And if you really
Yeah.
wanted to, you could go for the all hit attack, or you can do something like Parting Shot Z, right? Where you can just disable a
Hmm.
Pokemon in play, heal up another Pokemon who's low, and do a huge battle tempo swing, right?
Yeah.
I think that Z moves were fine, and I think if they just left it in for another generation, like they did with Mega Evolutions and Sun and Moon, you would have seen it come into full fruition, right? Where they had more time to
Hmm.
design it. And yes, like they would have had more exclusive moves, and heck, maybe Charizard would have gotten another Z move, but who knows, right?
Probably.
But
He's got two Mega Evolutions. I'm pretty sure he already has a Z move,
he has a
and he's
Z
got
move, yes.
a Gigantamax form. I like Charizard, but I can't stand the
It's
amount of
I find that he just has an overexposure effect. You know,
yeah.
he's just seen too much, and it's true he does sell, right? I
He
won't. I
does
won't. I won't.
sell.
I won't knock Game
Who
Freak
who
and
gives a
Nintendo.
shit
Yeah.
about Bulbasaur?
Hey, the Onion Boy is proud.
Onion boy. Go
But
back to
yeah.
the onion patch with the ogres.
Oof. But yeah, no. Like what I'm trying to say is that like Z moves and Mega Evolutions I think would have greatly would have been greatly more used if they left it in Sword and Shield. And I find that Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing aren't that interesting.
They are not.
Yeah, cuz
Because
like
aren't they? They don't actually increase stats. I'm not
they
entirely aware
increased
about.
health.
Yes, they only increase health. And if I have to do another raid battle which just has shields, I'm going to lose it.
Mhm. I find that Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing are lesser versions of both of these mechanics. Right?
Absolutely.
Like they all they do in my opinion is stall battles, especially if you have
Mm,
animations on. It just takes forever to activate. It takes forever to do anything. And a lot of the G Max moves or the max moves in general are
yeah.
quite uninspired, right?
Hmm.
For the first
All of
time, don't get
them
me
are kind
wrong,
of rip-offs of Z moves.
it,
Some
all of them are basically Z moves except
pretty much.
slightly worse. Except you can do it 3 turns, I guess, but the
Yeah.
whole strategy behind it is kind of eh, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Well, the three-turn thing also kind of is because I will admit one of the beautiful things about the Z move was that it was a pivot in the combat.
mm,
Really, you would use it when you're backed into a corner or when you want to press advantage to do
mm,
one big full-out turn and then kind of change the tide of battle into your favor. With the three-turn, because it is vastly weakened, it just like you said, kind of drags out the fight, and you don't have this quick pivot to am I winning, am I losing. It's just a
mm.
lot slower process.
Yes, like it does give a lot of just because any Pokemon can Dynamax and Gigantamax, and
Mm,
basically have access to a lot of Z moves in general. There are some interesting cases like the flying Max move gives your team a speed advantage, which is really important. A lot of
yeah.
people use it for that, but it's also once again it's not surprising when you see a flying Pokemon get Dynamaxed and they do the same move for their Dracofish to just one shot people, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of you know what's happening, you know what's up. It's the same thing with it. Just basically becomes Mega Evolutions, but now with the actual tiered Pokemon,
Mm,
right? So I once again I just find that Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing are just Mega Evolutions and Z moves combined, but
but
lacking
somehow it's
the
less than both
punch.
of them together.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can still do some pretty degenerate strategies, like some really strong strategies, rather. Like,
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, day one of Sword and Shield competitive, like, there was a Lucario Defiant set, which looks
Mm-hmm.
to pair him up with a Whimsicott, full team. This is like doubles, right? So
Yeah.
you Dynamax your Lucario, you then use Beat Up with your Whimsicott to attack your Lucario. So he gets a bunch of buffs with his Defiant, and then uses his Fighting G Max, Max move to increase his attack stat.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've probably set up a Tailwind, you're probably going faster than most people, so then you can just really pull in some pain. Like, don't get me wrong, there's some interesting strategies you can do with Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing.
Yeah.
It's just that we feel that in general, that Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing could have been done with Mega Evolution and Z moves in general, right? I find that Z
Mm-hmm.
moves are kind of talked down to because they are only appearing in one generation, right? Because you don't see them past that one
Yeah.
generation. Like Mega Evolution, in my opinion, really got a stand on Sun and Moon, right? A lot of
Mm-hmm.
the Mega Evolutions there were quite compelling, right, to use and
Yeah.
to abuse, right? Like in like gameplay and otherwise. And a lot of people got some of their favorites in that generation, just to see their Mega Evolutions, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
although like I can't say that because I got mine. I'm pretty sure I got mine like in X and Y,
Oh,
Mega Sableye, my guy. But uh, yeah, no, like it's just, in my opinion, kind of sad that we lost these
Yeah.
two interesting mechanics to one that's a kind of lesser amalgamation of the two, right?
Yeah.
I think they're good. I think Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing are good. I just don't see it to surviving past this generation, right?
No, none of them have survived for long. And when Gen 9 comes out, we'll have something completely different probably again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want to see Mega Evolution Z moves come back because
Mm,
they can work without this whole huge Pokemon angle, but still
yeah.
have, good applications in terms of gameplay.
Mm,
But yeah, no, like I think I think what we should talk about now, since we're done with the specific mechanic stuff that we want to talk
yeah.
about. What about luck in Pokemon? Let's talk about RNG,
Uh,
as we as
okay.
everyone loves.
Okay, can I just. I play XCOM. You know where
Yes,
I'm going with this.
yes.
100% chance to hit with the sectoid's face. Let's not even beat around the bush here.
Okay, that's true. It sucks, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're talking about 99%. Second of all,
Um, no, I swear to God, I've gotten 100%, and it just whiffed it.
I'm surprised by that. Gosh, but let's talk about some luck in Pokemon, right?
Mm,
So, let's identify some luck in Pokemon in general, right?
yeah.
The very obvious one, which is not really gameplay affecting, is shinies. But if we're talking about gameplay affecting ones, let's talk about accuracy, one hit KO moves, damage variance, IVs a bit, and then critical hits,
Mm.
right? Do you think that
I
these type
don't.
of things are healthy for this game? Like, let's start with accuracy, right? Is accuracy good?
Accuracy, I kind of like because it makes those overpowered moves just a little bit weaker. Though,
Mm,
if they were to remove accuracy, then the only way to balance that would to be either lowering that ability's power or move's power, or decreasing its amount of PP.
okay. So yeah, I'm in agreement with that a bit.
Mm.
I like accuracy. I always like the idea of high risk, high reward,
Yeah.
right?
And you also have the ability to increase or decrease accuracy. So it creates a new sort of game mechanic that you can just sort of play around with to try and
Mm-hmm.
either ruin the opponent's chances or increase your own. It's luck, but you are in control of it. It's not
Yeah.
that bad versus
Do you
something
need to
like a
gamble? Yeah. Like
yeah,
like Flame Blast is a 120 base damage move and will almost melt most grass steel types, right?
yeah.
So, are you willing to take an 80% accuracy over a guaranteed 100
Mm-hmm.
for this damage? And I think that's
Yeah,
yes.
it's the price you pay for using powerful moves. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's very good for balancing. Things like critical hits, though, I'm not sure I can agree with because you are very rarely in control of that. I think you can put some items on, of course, that increase your critical hit chance.
But yeah, no, like
Uh,
critical hits are, if I remember correctly, a 6.25% chance of actually activating. I did a Google search like 2 days ago. Uh, uh, but yeah,
that
it's a
seems
fairly low
higher than I
chance.
thought it was.
Yeah, it's critical hits are. I find that critical hits will only be fine if certain moves can critical, right?
Yeah.
If a move is like, oh yeah, this move will have, like, if let's say all moves starting from now on in Pokemon just no longer had critical hits except for a few couple moves,
Hmm.
I think that will make a more healthy design, right? Obviously, you
Yeah.
can increase with
And depending on
changes.
what moves you put that on, it could make older moves that are just kind of relegated to the corner more competitively viable and
Mm-hmm.
such.
Like, what's it called? Like, critical hits are just, in my opinion, a bit unhealthy and just put things into the side. Like
Absolutely.
you know how friendship works in Pokemon, right?
Yes.
How when you have a high enough friendship with a Pokemon, they can sometimes it's like, oh, he got a critical hit just for you, or like, oh, he survived that
Hmm.
hit just for you. In single player, that is fine. I
Yeah.
love that. It makes me feel like I've made a friend
That you
in a
bond with
virtual
your
video game.
Pokemon.
It's bonding, right?
You know,
Like,
they look over their shoulder at the start of the battle and give you a wink.
Yeah, like
That whole thing.
I'm a punch this Pokemon really hard in the face, you
I
know?
had that with my oh god, what is it? Corviknight in the new
Yeah,
game. I had him maxed out in friendship, and every time I threw him out, he's just like, "I'm gonna murder this guy for you.
yeah.
I'm gonna
Like
just tear him to shreds."
I think that's completely fine, and in fact,
I love
that is
that.
the design I think they intend for single
Yes,
player.
absolutely. It is. I love it in the base game. It is adorable, and
Mm-hmm.
it warms my heart to see my Pokemon. Like again, we talked about this earlier. That part of Pokemon's design is you building that bond with your Pokemon,
Yes,
and it helps with that.
but unfortunately, we're here talking about battles, right?
Yes, we're here to talk about actual mechanical design that is good and bad.
Yeah, and I think that critical hits should be relegated to the single player only, except for specific moves like quote unquote lucky punch that
Hmm.
will sometimes crit, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
think
kind of
the
what I was
crits
going on
should be
about
relegated.
return earlier. I'm not entirely sure friendship values have any place in competitive battling.
Well, two things. First, it's happiness value. Second,
Happiness, friendship, yeah,
two different values, by the
semantics.
way.
Semantics.
They're actually two different values. I'll have you know, but but yes, like I don't think that that what's it called that critical hits should exist as RNG. Do I think flinching should exist? In some cases, I agree as well. They should, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well, with flinching, it's exactly what we were talking about. How only certain moves really have it.
exactly, right? Like air slash is a low chance,
Mm-hmm.
and fake out is a 100% chance, but you're
Mm-hmm.
sacrificing it for that. You're sacrificing a lot of power. It's a 20 base move
Absolutely.
for that guarantee hit, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that's really good. Imagine if you
Knowing
had a
what it
move.
is on, again, kind of like in the way that you said, like, what was it? Not Gigantamaxing. Z moves kind of make
Mm-hmm.
you sacrifice an item slot. Is sacrificing a move slot for a random luck roll.
Yeah.
When it could be any move, then you're not sacrificing anything. A good
Yes.
game design will have you choose between, you know, what you want in terms of power. That's really what makes good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
The sacrifice around what you want.
Exactly. I think that the way that critical hits are handled in general, as a small
Hmm.
percentage chance, just feels bad, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like. Do you feel good as the person playing it? A bit, but by player psychology, the idea of that you lost because of RNG is far greater than just feeling like you lost, right?
Yes,
Your mind will
absolutely.
focus on the losses more than any tangible benefit that you've gained from critical hits, and I think they should be
Hmm.
gone, right?
Yeah.
Now, as we are in agreement with critical hits, thoughts about on Oko moves or one hit KO moves.
Yeah, I'm 50-50 on just OKOs in general, but I think having specific moves that OKO, it depends. If they're balanced properly, like again through accuracy or the amount of PP they have,
Mm-hmm.
um, then that is again sort of a cost benefit sort of situation. You pay the price of putting that move as one of your four that you can use, and you roll the dice on that
Mm-hmm.
to make it work.
Okay, but yeah, no, I'm in terms of like moves that one hit KO, as in they're designed to one hit KO, like uh,
Yeah.
Fisher, right? As a good example, I think
Hmm.
they're fine in single player, right? Because
Yeah.
it's a 5 PP move to begin with, and it takes up a slot, and its accuracy is 30%, right?
Yeah.
It's extremely unlikely to hit.
Hmm.
I just think it shouldn't be, what's the word? It shouldn't be relegated to gym battles. You know what I mean? Or maybe it should be. But what I'm trying to say is like it feels like in Generation One,
Hmm.
Giovanni has Fisher on his Rhydon.
Yeah.
If that is a slog of a battle for you and you're at your last Pokemon and you fight against his Rhydon and he Fishers you, you feel sad. You feel really sad, right?
Hmm.
Like I find that like, but it's also the right place to put a Fisher move, right? Because it's one
Yes.
of the last battles. So like
Hmm.
it's a difference between having a tough encounter.
Yeah.
I think that one hit KO moves are good when you've balanced the level out and the level progression. Because if you're under leveled when you're going to Giovanni, Fisher can come and slap you in the face, right?
Yes, it can
And
give you a nice little wake-up call.
yeah, and I think that one hit KOs are fine. And if you think, and also just because I've been talking about competitive a lot, one hit KOs moves are already banned in all competitive scenes, right? So like we don't worry about this. It exists in the game. No one uses it because they're not allowed to. So
Yeah.
it, like as I was saying, like it feels bad when it does land, right? Because it's just like you lost a lot in RNG just to die, and your opponent rolled really well. I think it's a good move when balanced on the right time, right? Because
Absolutely.
in every other JRPG, in almost every other final boss or other bosses in general, right, there is guaranteed a one-hit kill move
Yeah, there's
in the
always
game
some bull.
somewhere. You know what I mean? Like there's always that one-hit KO move that has a low percent chance. Like Persona 5, I believe it's called Hama, one of them, right? It's the light-based one, and it's just, or is the dark one? I forget. It's been a while. But you just get hit by that, you die.
Yeah.
And I think they're not the most fun designs, but they
No.
are
They are
interesting.
engaging.
They're engaging
Absolutely.
because as soon as you figure out that, oh, that has it, you're then like, okay, I need to start scrambling and recomp my team, right? Like,
Yes.
this is a ground, like Fissure is a ground type one hit KO move. Throw in your flying type. You know,
Yeah.
like there is still some strategy behind it. You just, there should be forewarning of it, I feel, right? Like Pokemon doesn't do well by showing you like, oh yeah, this person has moves, except for like Trace that says like, oh, I'm afraid of a move my opponent has, right?
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like it's hard. It's hard, but
It
I
is
think
a
it's
hard
good.
thing to balance.
I think it's fine. I think Oko moves are fine in the terms of actual Oko moves. You were saying something about just moves that one hit KO in general though? Like
Yeah.
like let's say like a super effective attack just murders
I think
a
what that
Pokemon.
comes down to more so is less the actual battling structure and more the design of the region and the gyms.
Ooh, I do want to talk about that, but I want to talk about it later. Do you want me to talk about that? Which one do you want to talk about first? Damage variants or IVs?
Whichever you're feeling. I think I have a bit more comprehension of damage variants. Like I said, I don't mess with IVs or EVs. The only competitive I play is random on the ladder on Showdown, so it's all
Yeah.
pre-generated for me.
Okay. Let's talk about IVs then, considering that you don't have too much knowledge, and we'll talk about damage variants once we get there, right? Considering that you said you know more about it. But IVs are individual values that Pokemon can have. They range from 0 to 31, and each Pokemon will have it for each stat. So HP, attack, defense, special defense, and all that other jazz.
Wait, can I just say something stupid that I thought for the longest time? When people used to tell me about IVs and EVs, they'd always tell me they'd be EV training, and I thought that literally meant they'd go out and pick fights with EVs. I'm not joking.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, technically you can, because EVs do give you a specific effort value stat increase. But I find that like EVs are more controllable than IVs, so it's not necessarily luck in Pokemon. But IVs, in my opinion, kind of make Pokemon less like okay. So IVs were designed as a way to make each Pokemon unique, right?
Yes.
That was the
initial
original idea.
value. So when you catch them, that's their sort of starting base stats or whatever, right?
Yeah, it's actually their multiplier. So it's like a growth multiplier. So Pokemon with like max IVs will guaranteed be a certain amount of stats at the end. But if they have 0 in all stats, they'll be significantly worse at level 100, right?
Yeah.
So IVs essentially basically say, hey, we have 2 Whimsicots here. One's better, one's worse. And in terms of competitive, it's just sort of like the only reason why you'd ever have less than perfect IVs is for hidden power, right?
Which is now gone.
Which is now
so
gone.
It's kind of pointless.
So, are IVs good anymore? I think no. IVs just IVs just.
I have to agree.
Yeah, IVs just say like, hey kid, you see that Pokemon you got there, that Pidgey? Yeah, my Pidgey. I have specifically bred this Pidgey to be the perfect incarnation of its man. It is the Ubermensch of Eevee. Like you know what I mean? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to eat Ivy breed now. Don't get me wrong. It's a
Of
lot
course, yeah.
easier. At this point, now that we've basically removed in my opinion, the only reason why we should care about IVs in hidden power, we should remove IVs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If there's
So you don't IV
again,
train.
I don't know much
You don't
about doing
IV
the
train, you
IV
don't
training particularly, or re-rolling to get IVs. Like you catch a Pokemon
yeah.
and then release them. The moment you started saying that, I clicked back to watching the Pokemon
Yeah.
anime. How in the fourth gen, the actual antagonist, like rival to Ash, was actually a
Oof.
guy who
Oof.
IV like
But
checked his
yeah, no, like
Pokemon and just
let me
tossed them
tell you.
in the trash. Um, yeah, if there's no point to like having any variation of those stats, and there's no point in
Mhm.
having those stats. If you're not going to get an advantage by having something like hidden power,
Yeah. I mean,
then what is the point of having the IVs be varying? It's kind of interesting to create
the
different,
Pokemon itself,
unique Pokemon based off those,
right?
but I'd rather have the
The
uniqueness of
move
my
set
Pokemon be
itself, the item
from
it's holding. You
something
have your own.
else.
You have a lot of creativity in your Pokemon
Yes,
just on
it's
what it is,
already
what moves it has,
varied.
and what
Yeah.
item it's holding, right? That's where you can show off your creativity as well as your player expression, right?
Mm.
And like it is your Pokemon. No one's gonna say like, "Oh yeah, you have a Metagross? Heh, well my Metagross has
Mm.
slightly different IVs, so mine's mine even more." No one's like that. No one thinks that, "Oh yeah, this is my Pokemon because it has slightly better IVs than yours."
Yeah.
No one thinks like that.
Yeah, it just makes the Pokemon better than the other one.
Exactly.
And when this is about, caring for your creature on some level, being like, oh, this one is a piece of shit, I'm gonna toss it, doesn't really reflect that nature.
Yeah. Okay. I've Ivy bred Pokemon since Generation 4, right?
You sick
I
bastard.
am. But you know how many
How many infants did you kill, damn you?
I would be more worried about how many Beldums I've destroyed. But but you know what I'm trying to say is it really sort of, especially in Generation 4, like especially in the early generations,
Mm.
Ivy breeding is boring. It is really boring.
Yeah.
It is basically finding the right Pokemon with the right high enough IVs, and you're just running around at the speed of sound,
Mm.
just to hope for maybe one to hatch with one perfect IV, and then throwing that into the mix, finding another Pokemon with another perfect IV stat, and then doing that again until you get all of the stats to perfect IV.
Yeah, it's very stupid when you put it like that.
Yeah, like the only way to get easy perfect IV stats was to hack them in, right?
Mm.
And that, and sure, like I'm proud that I have a near perfect IV Metagross except for one stat, right? Like
It only took you 700 hours.
it took me 2 months to get that down. Like I do mind you, this is when I was like a lot younger in high school and I wasn't really
Uh-huh.
good at it, but it took me 2 months.
Yeah, I remember my friends doing that in high school too.
Yeah,
That's the main turnoff of why I never really got into competitive till I started playing Showdown, and why I still don't touch IVs to this day.
exactly. Like
It's
it's really
not
hard.
friendly like at
Mm.
all for newcomers or anyone trying to get into that.
Mm-hmm.
And even just from like a strategy perspective, you just kind of lose outright for no reason. Especially if you form a bond with your Pokemon,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to pay the price for that, and you really shouldn't.
Mm-hmm. And like, sure, they did introduce like some interesting stuff, and like Sun and Moon, and Sword and Shield with like golden bottle caps and bottle caps in general,
Yeah.
right? They increase the one stat or all the stats to perfect, but what I'm trying to say is like I don't think at that point why don't just make everyone's stats perfect, right? Why even have
Exactly.
IVs, right? I think that IVs are outdated at this point.
Absolutely.
It's it's hard.
I play a lot of strategy games, and why wouldn't the Pokemon is already so unique and specific
Mm-hmm.
in its available moves and such, and its typings already, and its different variations, stats that it will end up with. Some being more defensively heavy, some being more attack focused, etc., etc.
Yeah.
What is the point of adding that variation of randomness to it? You know, if you get rid of that, then your Torterra is still going to be the same tier as all the other Torterras, and it will have utility based on all its other factors than just its randomness of stats.
Yeah, no,
It's very unstrategy friendly.
yeah, it's just I find that it had its purpose back in the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially in competitive in terms of hidden power. That was very important.
Yeah.
But now, is it? I don't think so. It's
No.
we've already have a lot of we have 800 Pokemon, right? We have we have what, 4 moves and like who however many moves we have now for each of them,
Mm-hmm.
and we have how many other items to add to them. We have a lot of player expression and player uniqueness there. At that
Yeah.
point, does the chance of you getting perfect IVs off a Pokemon really matter at that point? Right?
No.
Like I think IVs are only like in terms of design, I think they should be removed from the base games. Yeah, so I find that IVs are more hindering to one of the gameplay loops, which is battling, than anything additive to it. That's it for IVs.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Let's talk about damage variance. And
All
when
right.
I
You lead again.
yes, okay. So what do I mean by damage variance in terms of RNG? Well, let's talk about how damage is calculating in Pokemon in general, right? So
Yeah.
every move has a base power, as you know, but the thing is, what people don't realize or sometimes don't realize is that damage has a low point and a high point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon has a damage calculator, which is like 2 times level over 5 plus 2 times the power times AD over 50 plus 2 times the modifier to equal damage. It's a it's an algebra question basically. it's
Dear God, not more math.
yeah, it's a lot of math, right? But there
Mm.
is always there is a high point and a low point for damage, and you can have a lot of weird things happen if you don't understand that can happen, right? A
Yeah.
good example of it happening, and a fairly simple but understandable explanation was in a Nuzlocke playthrough that Jaden Animations made, right? She
Yeah.
talks about her Nuzlocke experience doing Ruby and Sapphire, if I remember correctly, and she talks about how one of her Pokemon dies because the enemy's Crobat had a low roll damage output and then a high roll damage output. So her ability to judge damage was completely
Mm-hmm.
changed because of that. Because she's like, oh, I can survive 2 hits off of this, and then all of a sudden you get hit by the stronger version just because of a slight increase, and then you just die.
Yeah.
Right? Does that need to exist? Thoughts?
Uh, Not particularly. There are some that are like that, like
Mm-hmm.
magnitude, that kind of makes sense. But you understand how magnitude works.
Yeah.
It's present in the name and the scaling it shows you. But for random attacks that you can't really tell, it's kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to that whole idea of having certain moves having specific traits to them that are well known, making those moves more viable and unique versus having certain things just be universal on moves,
Mm-hmm.
because that just kind of ruins the gameplay design.
Yeah. No. It's just. It's I. Once again, this comes up every time I say this. I think it's fine in single player.
Mm-hmm. I thought you were gonna when you said that you were gonna start shit talking Vespa Queen again, but okay.
Oh, I'd rather not. I genuinely think that the design of Vespiquen's fine. It's an interesting mon. It is an interesting mon. It's one of the few female exclusive types, or like the gender exclusive
Mm-hmm.
types. Yeah, no. I think damage variance, the slight one, is fine for non-competitive play, right? Like,
Yeah.
or at least not in online play. Like, no PvP or anything like that. Because let's be honest, that sucks. It's not much, but if it's the edge case, people
Mm-hmm.
still get mad, right? Because every time you play, right, you're just like, oh, yeah,
Yes.
that's a slight change in the move. Sure, it's not gonna come up often, but when it does, it's like rolling a 1 in D&D. When it does happen, it feels bad. It feels really
Yeah.
bad, right? It's it's just that. I think it's fine
Mm-hmm.
in single player just because, keeps you on your toes and also makes you think about the extra RNG and math. But in terms of competitive, can suck. But there is the argument that yes, if you're playing competitive, you should understand that this does happen, and you should play around it.
Mm-hmm.
So, does it
I can't agree with that statement because there is strategy to unpredictability,
mm,
but you must know that that unpredictability is inherently predictable.
yeah,
Knowing a move can be unpredictable and have variation and changes is in itself a predictability that allows you to build a strategy and an understanding of the combat. If it can just be any random thing, then that isn't strategy. That ruins any sort of planning and decisiveness on your part.
I mean, everyone if you really do want to know the exact
Mm-hmm.
numbers of it, a move can do 85% to 100% of its full damage, right? Every time it hits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a major thing where it's 40% to 100%, right?
Yeah.
So it is for example, the Bulbapedia does put it as the difference between the damage is a difference of for Ice Fang in terms of calculations from a Garchomp, right? 168 health to 196, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which, understandably, can be huge, right?
Yeah.
But does that really mean anything, right? Does
Mm-hmm.
for example, if you're playing one of my personal favorite games, like a card game, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you have to understand that variance is a thing that you should come in to expect, and that the whole fun, or some of the fun at least, is reducing variance, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing as playing with, what's the word, with a flame blast, right? The idea of that you have a percentage chance to miss is what you're signing up for, right? So does that mean
Absolutely.
does variance like this also, in the terms of gameplay, are you signing up for this and are you fine with this to exist?
I don't. The problem with that is, again, I don't think you really sign up for that because it's far more generic
Mm-hmm.
than an accuracy value is.
So for me, it's hard for me to say. You know what I mean, right?
Mm.
Because obviously, chance does shake up things, right? Like
Yeah.
a boring game can be turned into a good game by just 1% die roll, right? Or an interesting fight can
Mm.
a normal fight can be turned into dire circumstances just for storytelling by random dice roll, which I think is great for single player. For competitive,
Yeah.
I'm more mild to it. I think it's fine just because it is something you need to as competing. Like when you compete, you need to understand it exists, and you need to be mindful of it, and you need to understand that what you can do to fight against it, and what you do to take advantage of it, right?
Yeah.
And the whole point is estimation and guessing, right? You're not 100% sure about almost anything, and no one's a true machine, right?
Mm.
I think that in terms of single player, yes. In terms of competitive, it's fine. It's not super game breaking. Should it still exist? That's up to Game Freak, right?
Yeah.
That's my opinion on that, of course. So then, topic we want to talk about is IVs and EVs then, or just EVs in general.
We kind of discussed a lot of IVs
So just
already.
EVs then, right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So EVs, effort values, basically the actual training part of Pokemon training, right? How you determine your Pokemon's EVs is based on the Pokemon they fight, and they can increase specific stats. If I remember correctly, a Pidgey will increase your speed effort value by 1, right? So you need to kill or feint a lot of EVs in order to get a full maxed out speed stat, right? I said Pidgeys, right?
Yeah.
Or did I say EVs?
Yeah,
okay,
you said Pidgeys.
Sorry. Yeah, so are they good for the game? Yes. That's my opinion, straight out. They in terms of just playing the game, they are good. I find that if you're playing casually, you don't know what you're doing, you're just fighting mons, catching, releasing, doing the gym battles and all that other jazz.
Mm.
Just even if you don't know they exist, it
Yeah.
does in the end still make your own personal unique Pokemon. In terms of competitive, you can be a lot more creative with the
Mm.
EVs than IVs, right? Because that you determine where to put your effort values in, right?
Absolutely.
So
It's a lot more controllable than Ivies are, which I think makes it good
yes,
in terms of again creating a unique Pokemon and even and unlike Ivy values where you are inherently better or worse with EV values, you can essentially make yourself
mm-hmm.
better. You know, you're not a predetermined fate. You make your own thing, and when it comes to casual play, it is not going to screw you over as much as Ivies will.
Mm-hmm. Like I think one of the best examples would be an anecdote from like me just playing Showdown, right? So I like to run
Yeah.
a very specific glass score, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
a bulky sweeper, right? So I put max IVs into HP and then half EVs into attack. The only reason I put half is so I can put the other half into speed, right?
Hmm.
Not because it's, oh yeah, he's already a sweeper enough. No, it's because I want to outspeed certain Pokemon, right? So there are a lot of
Yeah.
people who can run Gliscor as tanky. So you just throw in Gliscor EVs into HP and then your choice of defense, mostly normal defense. But I like to run him as a sweeper with Swords Dance, Swords Dance, knockoff, Earthquake, and another move depending on whichever. I usually run Roost, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and then give him Poison Heal, and then give him a Toxic Orb, right?
Yeah.
So he's my version of a sweeper, right? He is tanky. He
Yeah.
self heals. He can't be status affected because he's already toxic, right? And his main idea is to get onto a safe Pokemon. So basically, Pokemon is either forced to switch or he can survive a hit off of. Swords Dance once and then sweep. And because he's
Mm-hmm.
slightly faster than than some sweepers because of that slight EV boost, he can just get a killer like earthquake knockoff on people, and those are stab moves, right? Same type
Yeah.
effect bonuses, which we haven't talked about, but the like these type of this choice is mine and mine alone. Like mine and obviously
Mm-hmm.
some people have probably done this build because no one's you know perfectly creative, right? And
Yeah.
but what I'm trying to say is that this is the way I would design my Gliscor, right?
Yeah, I agree. EV values and all that. It works a lot better as a concept because it's like specking into a
Mm-hmm.
class of your own choice in like an RPG. You know, you make the character, you choose the abilities that you want to put on that character and go down that line in the tech tree. It's the exact same sort of thing
Mm-hmm.
where you choose to spec into these
Yeah, rather
options.
than IVs being this is what you're born with, right?
Yes. No one wants to be born a
Yeah,
loser.
yeah, that sucks. Like I'm born a loser. Like it sucks. IVs, I think, once again, are outdated, and EVs are, I think, are just
Mm,
creatively fulfilling, as well as
absolutely.
continue pushing the main narrative and the main like expression of the
Mm,
game and the main design focus, which is making a friend and then like or Pokemon
mm,
training and then just training a Pokemon to become the very best, like no one ever was, right? And
mm.
Eevees push that to be like, this is your Pikachu, this is your strong Scorpy, this is
Scorpion.
you Kid Joey. Your Caterpie is the very best Caterpie because you Eevee trained him to this specific type. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mm,
it's
yeah,
fulfilling. It's That's
absolutely.
it. So yeah,
Yeah.
but let me just ask you this: do you play Pokemon for battling? Right? Do you just play it for battling?
Every the story is all well and good, and I like bonding with my Pokemon and seeing the
Mm-hmm.
world, which has been lackluster for
for
a
a little bit.
while.
Yeah.
But um, the problem is if even if I don't, I play a lot of strategy games,
Yes.
right? But even if I'm not playing Pokemon for the battling, it is ironically the main gameplay
Hmm.
loop. There's not much else to it other than battling. So even if I'm not going in for the battling, I have to mandatorily do it. It's not like all those little side mini games and all that you can play throughout the different
Yes.
regions. You are forced to do this, and if it is not fun and engaging, then I'm screwed,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. I agree with that. Like now, since now in Gen 8, I'm not super into the battling system. I mean, I love everything they're
Yeah.
trying to do with it, especially by removing a lot of Pokemon. However controversial
Mm.
that has been, like, it's we're probably in a very healthy competitive scene already, right? Just because of that
Yeah.
alone. But I find that Pokemon games now, the main appeal is less about the battles and more
Mm.
about interaction with your Pokemon, right? Like,
Absolutely. They
absolutely.
put a lot of
Like,
effort into the
Pokemon
camps.
camps are the beefy cousin of Pokemon Emmy, right? And
Absolutely. I played a lot of the Pokemon camp, not gonna lie. I liked petting the like
you
nose of my
you
Corviknight.
don't understand the appeal. Like, for those who haven't played Sword and Shield yet, the appeal, if you already love Pokemon and you're super into Pokemon and the
Mm.
designs already, there is something wholly cathartic about playing catch
It's like one of
with
those
your Pokemon.
Nintendogs, right?
It's like, yeah, it's like Nintendogs.
It's a little pet
Yeah,
simulator, and I really like it.
yeah, like,
But it's a pet simulator with all this like baggage
uh
to
huh.
it. It's the
Yeah, I find that
problem.
Pokemon battles, at least like single player Pokemon battles, yawn fest, right?
Mm.
Like a lot of the like
Absolutely.
somehow I find that the Pokemon devs, like Game Freak and all of them, have like they clearly designed for kids, right? Don't get me wrong. This
Absolutely.
is a kids game.
But you can design for kids while still maintaining an engaging product.
Exactly. And that's what I find kind of sad, right? Cuz they have a great
Mm.
underlying like battle system in the game, but it just doesn't
Absolutely.
shine, right? There are some really cool things.
It's just been bogged down with years of garbage.
I don't think the new garbage is I don't think the new stuff is garbage, right? It's fine, but they don't exploit it to its full potential in terms of battling.
Absolutely.
Like storyline, they can do whatever they want with it, right? That's easy to change. That's
Hmm.
quote unquote not easy. It's easier to change than battling, but the battling AI
Yeah.
just sort of feels bad, right? There's a lot of
Yeah, the battling AI
there's a lot of
is
untapped
terrible.
potential, right? For example,
Hmm.
I understand this is probably a controversial statement, but imagine if there was a status gym, like a gym that whose entire like gimmick was status effects.
You see, this is why I want to hold off on talking about storyline Pokemon battles because I'm about to go off on gyms.
What I'm trying to say is, like, why aren't there status effect battles, right? Why
Hmm.
aren't there battles that rely on a specific strategy, like rain strategies, right? Baton pass strategies.
Yeah.
Obviously the harder one to do is the baton pass strategy, just because what happens if your baton
Hmm.
passer gets OHKO'd, right? And
Yeah.
then your entire strategy is down. Like, and that,
Well, yeah, that's one of the things I kind of wanted to talk about when discussing story battles and gym battles specifically.
mm,
How, they're kind of boring because they're all type
yes,
based, and that's just a generic gimmick. But there are other gimmicks in Pokemon, like the eighth gym
yeah,
leader, right? It was a double battle gym, which first off,
yeah,
cool. That was one of the few fights in the game I actually found interesting because the double battles created a sort of unique fight that you haven't had throughout the rest of the
mm-hmm,
game, even though I'm not entirely, I've done double battles before. I played XD, it's only double
mm-hmm,
battles. But on top of that, it was also weather effects, right? You have your sandstorm and you get buffered, and all his Pokemon have kind of immunity to different things like hail and all
yeah,
that. And it was very interesting to see that finally exploited, but it was at the very end of the game, and it wasn't, again, really fleshed out. There could be so much more of those sort of less type-based battles. Like that's what always makes the champion sort of an engaging fight, and was the only other fight in the game I found
Mm.
interesting because he was not bogged down to just generic. I'm going to use fire type. Oh no, you brought in water type. Kind of, you know.
Yeah, it's the main issue, right? In terms of battling in the single player,
Yes.
right? It
Mm.
is kind of boring, right?
Yeah, I say get rid of monotyping gyms
I
altogether.
would say, yeah, no, get rid of auto-typing gyms and just like if you can't change the AI, which I understand can be very difficult.
Mm.
Yeah, we've all
Yeah.
we've had our dabbles with AI before, and it sucks. It sucks. We are definitely not AI programmers.
I enjoy programming AI.
but but
Yeah.
like AI is difficult. But if you can't change AI, change the
Absolutely.
stats, right? Give tougher
Yeah.
Pokemon, or just change up the gym
hmm
layout in general, right? Just a
Yes,
status
absolutely.
effect gym. I like would be interesting to say the least. A weather effect gym would be interesting, right? Like that's the kind of
Mm.
stuff that would make battles in terms of single player more interesting and more open towards people getting into more competitively, right? Because they're like, oh, you can do that.
hmm
Wait, why am I losing this team? Swift swim. What
Yeah,
does Swift swim do?
yeah, it really opens up a lot more to the Pokemon battling because it will
Uh huh.
showcase those strategies that people use but are not represented by the actual
Mm-hmm.
game itself.
It like there is a case against that idea, right? That you do invalidate a couple or many Pokemon because of this, right? Just because,
hmm
yes, there are Pokemon who are statistically weaker than others, right? One of my friends
Yes.
enjoys going to Pokemon games and doing a brittle run, right? The idea of having Pokemon
hmm
whose stat value is, if I remember correctly, 300 and below total stat value, right? So, like,
Yeah.
the idea of increasing the difficulty will, ultimately make the game harder, but I think it's a lot more
hmm
worth it, especially because I find that some of the puzzles are gotten a lot easier to do in gyms, right? Because
Yeah. Oh god, the pre-fight puzzles in gyms are just I don't know why they're still
I think they're
there, to
fine
be honest.
if they're engaging, right? Like
Yes. That
I
is the
okay,
problem. I have not found one of them an interesting puzzle
okay.
in
I
forever.
found that the Kabu fight, the fire gym in Generation 8,
Kabu.
the one in Sword and Shield, was interesting just because you had to fight with someone else to kill one Pokemon, right?
Oh yes, you
Yeah,
had to
catch
catch the
or
Pokemon,
faint them,
right?
right? You had an interesting choice there. If the AI for
Mm-hmm.
that for your partners were a lot harder, it'd be a lot more interesting, right? But like,
Yeah.
I think that was interesting. But however, there were some people who I know who played through the game who, instead of just like, oh, trying to compete with them, just killed the opponent. They just took their Pokemon like, can I target them? Oh, I can target them. Slap them in the face. If they
mm.
removed that aspect to it, then I think the fight would have been a lot more interesting. Just because like it is, oh, a risk
Yeah.
reward. Do you want to throw your Pokeball now and not attack to maybe get the Pokemon to get extra points, or do I feign it to force him to not get any points guaranteed? That I think is an interesting puzzle you
Mm.
could create for the player instead. But like Nessa's water
Yeah.
puzzle, boring. The Wooloo puzzle, it was walk in the park, literally.
Absolutely.
But
Literally.
if you have a good puzzle, it can make a gem completely memorable. To this day, I am stuck in Snow Peak.
Oh god, are you talking Gen
Generation
4?
4,
The ice.
Gen 4, Ice type, Snow Peak
Oh,
gym
I actually really
is,
love the Snow Peak gym. Just sliding around that puzzle was fantastic.
yeah, that puzzle was an engaging and good puzzle. It was
Mm-hmm.
literally a puzzle. And I think you can have like less interesting fights if you can have puzzles like that,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
A gym whose theme matches as well as a good puzzle can just like as I was just saying, I'm still there. Like whenever I think of Pokemon, that is one of the gyms I think about
mm-hmm.
first, right? I don't even remember most gyms' names,
Neither do I, to be honest.
right? But I can tell you Snow Peak, and it's like it's everything about it leading up to that gym,
Hmm.
and even just going there,
I also remember
interesting and memorable.
Crasher Wake's gym because he had to vary the water level and then the platforms would rise and fall
Yeah.
and it created a very interesting thing of like, oh, I need to get this platform up, I need to get this platform down to go there. How do I do this?
Yes, I think the best way to describe what the gym, at least in what I want from a
Hmm.
gym, is I want a gym to feel like I'm playing a Zelda dungeon,
Absolutely. I think what benefited
right?
those older games, though, was that the gym was far more compact because of the art style. You could see the
Yes,
entirety of
yes.
the puzzle at once versus, like Nessa's gym, where I have to walk around slowly because a lot of it is off screen and I got to get it into the frame.
Mm-hmm.
Seeing a puzzle as one big object makes a puzzle more impactful.
Exactly, right? Like obviously I'm not sure they can change that simply pulling the camera back
Hmm.
and allowing you to see more of the area,
Yeah.
right? But will they do
No.
that? Who knows, right? I don't know. For all we know, someone could change and higher up in Game Freak and just say, "Hey, for this gym, let's pull the camera back."
Hmm.
It's as simple as pulling the camera back and making the play space larger and texturing the areas outside of the wall so it can be like, just nothing there,
Yeah.
right? Or rather, have the texture just be a black plane,
Hmm.
But I think that battles are not the main point.
Not
Pokemon,
anymore.
there's a lot more. Not anymore. Pokemon is no longer
It,
about
it
battles.
also seems Pokemon also seems to think it's about the story, which no,
It's not. Well,
no, don't
okay. Pokemon
don't
is.
encourage them.
I can't help it's what they want,
It is
right?
what they want.
So like even if we don't agree that the story is the best, which it in my opinion really isn't.
I enjoyed Gen 5's story a lot. I absolutely hate Gen 6. I despise everything about it. It
Really?
it is the game that bores me the most and annoys me the most.
Okay, okay. I can understand that, right? Like
Especially with it being the
it's
jump to 3D. I was so excited for it, and I did not like it at all. I
mm,
skipped Oraz. I didn't mind Sun and Moon. I actually rather quite like that because they fixed a lot of
Sun and Moon.
my issues I
Sun and Moon's
had.
good.
But
So I find that the best Pokemon stories are never about the end of the world,
absolutely,
right? Like sure, Pokemon Sun and Moon talks about uh spoilers, intergalactic travel,
yeah. God,
basically interdimensional beings
I
invading
was
our
always
planet,
so much
but it was
more
never
like
about the death.
interested in Team Skull than I was like the Life Foundation or whatever they were called, right?
I agree, right? Like it's Aether Foundation
Uh,
first of all. Second
yeah,
of
the
all,
Life Foundation is from Venom.
sorry, but yeah, no, like it's more interesting when it's just a personal story,
Absolutely, yeah,
right? I guess we should just continue on,
yeah.
but like a more interesting story in general,
Hmm.
right? Is just personal ones, right? Do you
Absolutely,
remember Silver and Gold,
yes.
right? Do you remember the Celebi event
Hmm.
where it gave your rival actual story? You know how interested that is interesting
Yeah.
that is,
Oh god,
right?
events in Pokemon have just completely been ignored for years. You know, remember
Yeah,
all of them in
I mean
Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum? How they were all like their own additional story add-ons. That was
oh my gosh,
fantastic.
the best one, my opinion, Darkrai.
Darkrai was good.
Darkrai was great.
Oh man.
It was like adding to something that
Hmm.
you knew something was up because it was in that one city with the only door with a lock,
Yes.
right? And for reference, that doesn't really happen in Pokemon where a door is inaccessible.
Hmm. Any door is
And
pretty much
you
always
had
open
one.
for you to go into. You
Yeah.
just kick open the door and
Like
walk in someone's house, steal their food. That's how it goes.
yeah, if the designers never wanted you to go into a
Hmm.
building, they didn't give you a door,
Yes.
right? It So when you find a door in that one
Mm.
city that had a lock, you knew something
Yeah.
was up. And when they released it, and like obviously at that point, a lot of people already knew that Darkrai existed,
Mm.
right? Everything about that was
Yeah.
nice. It was good. Events are great.
They felt so much more organic again with the story building, and there were other ones like the different Reggie events that showed up in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. But then those were
Mm-hmm.
also to get. It wasn't explicitly
Gigas, the
Regigigas,
worst Pokemon
but
in the
it
game.
was to get
Yeah,
Regigigas. That's why they
like
had it in there.
yeah, the worst Pokemon in the
Yeah,
game.
pretty much. Yeah, yeah. I wish
Oh my
they
gosh,
did do the Arceus event because that was a cool one, but I had to hack it in with a action replay. I did do the
yeah,
event,
no,
but
same.
you had to do it because it
If
never
I remember correctly,
released.
you had to get the Aeon flute,
Yes,
and
it
then
was never
like
released.
at the peak,
Yeah,
right? Peak of the mountain, you played it, and then like magical stairs showed
you
up,
literally
leading you to God.
Arceus got shafted because it is literally the god Pokemon, but you've never had like an intense experience of it except through that event, which not a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
played because you couldn't play it unless it was hacked in.
Did they not do the one for Hard Gold Soul Silver?
Uh oh
Oh no, you had to have RCS for that
yeah,
event. Sorry, it was the one where you can get one of the three
yeah,
legendaries from Diamond and
at
Pearl.
the relic place, right? The runes.
Yeah,
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 I
you
remember that.
teleported there, and then like a weird triangle,
Mm.
and then your RCS walked there and be like, "Yo,
Yo.
watch this,"
Mm.
and like did a sick kickflip and summoned Giratina.
Yeah, it was cool stuff like that, man. In
Yeah,
Gen
like those.
6, they tried to do that, apparently. You know how you said, like, any
Yeah.
locked door, is usually something designed for later, because in Pokemon, if it's a door, you walk through it. The
Yeah.
power plant in Gen 6 was meant for, like, Volcanion or whatever. Not,
Yeah,
yeah,
Volcarona.
Volcarona. But they never put the actual event into the game. Instead, they just handed it out as a mystery gift, and that was it.
I mean, it sucks that there was
Yeah.
content, but what can you do? Game
Mm.
development's hard,
But the issue I
right?
have with that is instead of correcting that later for that, they cut that content, but they didn't have to keep cutting the content, is my issue with it. They saw that no
Yeah,
one really cared because they still
cared.
got the Pokemon, so they went, oh,
Yeah.
let's just always hand out Pokemon from now on. And it's really sad. Like,
Mm.
remember the Zora and Zoroark event in Gen 5? That was fantastic. And then Gen 6, like, the next gen, instead of having it as this rare pseudo-legendary Pokemon, you can just catch them all in a forest.
I mean, yeah, I can feel that. I think they should have, if they wanted to, have Zoroark as a normal random spawn. It should have been less than
Mm.
1%, and not show up as as Zoroark or Zora. It should have showed up as like one of the other Pokemon
Yeah,
in the
kind of
game,
like
right?
it was transformed.
Yeah, it was transformed, hiding in plain
Mm,
sight, and then
that would
like
be really cool. I would have liked that.
that would be super fun. You know what I mean? Like, obviously, it should attack
Mm-hmm.
to break the illusion,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, but it also gives incentive to be like to catch every single thing in an area for or
Mm-hmm.
Zoroark, right?
You know,
Like, don't get me wrong, 100 like completionists will be annoyed,
yeah.
right? Because imagine having to just walk around and just being like, oh, is this Zora? Waits a turn. No, it's
No, it's
not.
not.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it would be annoying for that, but it would be a good in game
Mm-hmm.
universe explanation as well as just a fun way to find it as a casual player,
Absolutely.
right? You know how cool it'd be like
Yeah,
to be
there's a lot
like,
of
oh
like
yeah, it's an Eevee.
in-universe stuff that they could really play around with better.
Like Mad Cargo instantly killing
Oh
you
my
upon
god,
sight,
yeah, it just melts you.
just melt immediately. But but yeah, no, like there is a lot of stuff they could have done with
Mhm.
that could make it interesting.
Did you want to talk about
But
HMs?
HMs, yes. I did want to talk about HMs just because HMs were interesting, at least early on.
Hmm. I,
A
I, I
controversial
didn't
statement.
like having HM slaves. I do like what they did in like X and Y and Sun and Moon and all that. No, they didn't do it in X and Y. And just in Sun and Moon, pretty much, where they tried to
Yeah.
get rid of it. In Sword and Shield, they just have none of it at all. Like there is, I guess aside from getting the upgrade on your bike to go into the water, there
Yeah,
really
and the
is,
flying.
yeah, and the flying unlock. There really is no like traversal puzzles. There's no gated off areas. Going through what is it
Mm,
in Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Mount Cornet? Is what it's called,
yeah,
right? Going in there and seeing that there's areas further beyond that you can't access until later in the game, and all these items hidden around. It was really interesting, and eventually, you get strong enough, you beat the gym, you unlock the ability to use, rock climb. You go back and you get that item that you've been eyeballing for like a week,
yeah.
right? It's
I
fun.
I'm in whole agreement that it is fun to get an HM. Is it fun to use an HM? Is another thing, right? Uh, Okay, let me explain
Yeah,
myself. So I find that HMs in Generation 1 to 4
yeah. Mm-hmm.
were interesting,
Yes.
right? Hell, maybe even just to 3 or even 2, Generation
We
2.
just regressing.
Cuz yeah, no, cuz there is okay. Let me continue
Yeah, yeah.
explaining. But HMs were in terms of the history of all JRPGs an interesting way of introducing moves that affected the
Mm-hmm.
world, right? Let's take early Dragon Quest for example, right? What there were almost no moves that could be used on overworld,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only move, the only moves that really worked were heal,
Yeah.
right? Just healing, and that's cool, right? Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Was it cool or interesting? Not really,
Yeah.
right? HMs were a way of introducing moves that actually affected the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cut down trees, rock climb, climbed rocks, right? Right?
Yeah, they
But
weren't the most
what I'm trying to say is
innovative
like
names.
they
Rock
weren't innovative
Smash.
names, right? No. Yeah. What they do? Push rocks. No,
Yeah,
they
the
smash
Smash
rocks, right?
Rocks.
Like yeah, rock smash, right? But in terms of actually battling, which in my opinion was more visceral and
Yeah, it
more
was a far better
aggressive in
focus
the
in
earlier
most games.
generations,
Yeah.
yeah, like it became a lot harder to just include them because rock smash is important, but it is one of the, if not the weakest move, or at least the most iconic weak move,
Yes,
right?
absolutely. You had to pay the price to have progression.
And HMs can be forgotten, right? They
Yeah.
couldn't be replaced unless you went to a specific person to forget
Hmm.
them, right? And that made it super hard to be like, hey, I like my main Swampert or I like my main
Yeah.
Charizard, right? I can't give them this specific HM or else they lose out on strength, right?
Hmm.
Like like when I say strength, not the HM, I mean like an actual like combat power.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, like sure, like the only like argument of an HM being good on a Pokemon is Surf,
Yeah. Surf's good.
right? It's
Waterfall
a
was
very useful
decent.
move. Waterfall was decent, but you still couldn't really argue its
Yeah.
use, right? So what usually happened in a lot of these earlier generations was that there was one Pokemon that held all of your HMs,
The
or at least
HM
most of them,
Slave.
right?
Classic.
Yes, right? Yeah, classic. But did you really want to have a Pokemon friend in your team that wasn't really a friend?
Not really. No,
Was
I,
it
I
worth it?
always hated carrying
No.
that around. Which
Yeah,
is why I
like
started doing what
Generation
you said,
4.
like putting HMs on my main team, but then I'm lowering the strength of my main team, but just so I could fill up
Exactly.
a slot with a Pokemon I actually cared about rather than one just being a jockey for, traversing around.
Mm-hmm. I find that HMs, at least in their early stages, Generation 1, 2 to 3 maybe,
Hmm.
they were novel. They are super
Yeah.
novel, right? They are moves that interact with the world. Do I think they're good?
No.
No. They're not healthy. Well, if you could forget them on the spot and then relearn them because they
Hmm.
didn't expire, that'd be fine,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, you do have the possibility of getting yourself stuck in the wrong place, like on an island
Hmm.
or in a cave or whatever, but you have ways to get off of that
Yeah.
still. For example, if you're in a cave, an escape rope. And I was discussing earlier with Ethan that if you get stuck anywhere, why not just, introduce more lore, right?
Hmm.
Have it so that Pokemon Rangers, the rescue team
Yo,
of
I
the
love
Pokemon
Pokemon
series and
Rangers.
universe, yeah, Like, just have them save you as a player. Do it for free because they are charitable. They're supposedly charitable, at least,
Mm. Yeah.
right? Like, like have something like that. For like, you can still have HMs, right? But you can just relegate them to be a normal move
Yeah.
with an unbreakable TM,
Hmm.
right? And we'll talk about TM. I think we should talk about TMs a bit as well. But like
Yeah, well, we also
HMs,
discussed alternatives to HMs like the ride Pokemon. In theory, that
yes,
was
ride Pokemon.
cool,
I think are fine.
but
Yeah,
it sucks. Quite
yeah.
frankly,
I It feels kind of like you're just calling
yeah,
a special or a special
it,
mount
it
at
never
that point.
felt cool. Like when you used Cut, it was always your Pokemon using Cut. You just call someone else's
Yeah,
guy to come over and chop a tree for you. It
yeah.
stinks. I want to use my
It's
Pokemon.
it. Yeah, exactly. It should be your
Hmm.
Pokemon that should be the ones helping you out. I think the like one of the more interesting ones, even though I didn't fully enjoy the game, was Pokemon Let's Go. Right, where your Eevee or Pikachu would learn your HMs, but they wouldn't take a slot.
Yes.
Right. I think that's fine, but at that point, right, they can't guarantee that you have one Pokemon with you at all
Hmm.
times, right? Which is sure annoying design wise, but I find that if you can just sort of give your Pokemon the moves, or
Yeah.
just, hey, this is a hidden technique, all my Pokemon know it now,
Hmm.
right? That's
Yeah,
fine.
we were
That's
talking
fine.
about it earlier. I suggested that either instead of having it as like a move you actually have to learn, it should be just something you unlock
Mm-hmm.
and then based on your Pokemon's type or what Pokemon they are, or any type of moves that they have on them, you could then interact with the
Mm-hmm.
world in that way. Why have Rock Smash, break rocks? You got Brick Break, Karate Chop, Low Sweep,
Cross slash,
Cross
right?
Slash.
I don't think legs. Imagine just leg sweeping a rock and breaking it down. That is a sweep of a leg. Damn. But yeah, no, like I find the idea of locking off the world
Hmm.
to one specific move to be unhealthy, and I do agree that like maybe they should expand the way that
Yeah.
you can interact with the world.
I do
Do
like
mounts?
the interaction between your Pokemon and the world. It's very good for creating sort of like a bit of an organic kind of gameplay to that.
Mm-hmm.
And it adds into that sort of puzzle solving, backtracking sort of traversal that is lacking in Sword and Shield.
The new games. Yeah.
You know, you can't really go back to the different areas. Instead, they just kind of got a guy standing in your way, being like, "Hey, I'm not letting you through here right now." It just comes off less like organic and natural because the path is blocked off by like overgrown
Yeah.
trees and woods or like rocks have fallen from the cliffs or in a cave. And instead, it's just a guy standing there saying you can't go this way. It's a
Yeah.
lot more
Just
boring.
fly over him.
Yeah, exactly. Just fly over
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. You have a taxi, right?
Yeah. What am I paying him for, man?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like, but yeah, no, it's just at least with traversal, HMs were a good idea in
Mm-hmm.
concept, but in terms of execution,
Terrible.
they could have they could have done a
No,
lot better,
absolutely.
right? It would be more interesting than like specific types. As soon as you learn the technique,
Mm-hmm.
right, it'll open up. Oh yeah, fighting types can always break
Yeah.
rocks, right? And then like all flying types can
Yeah.
fly, right? All flying and dragon. I should make. No wait, maybe not
Not
all
all
dragon,
dragon.
but you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Again, maybe it should be
because
less decided based on the types and more based on the individual Pokemon themselves.
that sounds like a lot of extra
I
overhead.
suppose, but you'd think it'd just be like a Boolean.
Yeah, but then you have to add for each Pokemon an HM mod. I guess I already do have that,
Yeah. it,
right?
it wouldn't be too much more, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it wouldn't be too much more to ask.
Yeah. Because you'd be
Yeah,
removing a lot of stuff to put that in anyway, so.
you're removing the actual move itself, and then you're actually adding
You're
something
removing that
in.
move, and you're removing, or rather, instead of just removing, you're replacing that move with just knowing that the Pokemon can have this effect on the world. And in addition, it would
Like,
add a lot more
yeah,
like sort of unique effects that your Pokemon can do. Imagine having more world interacting abilities like, oh, your ghost types can float through walls in this section or something like that, and you could create some really interesting puzzles and concepts with that.
Yeah, only your ghost types can take you to the nether realm.
Mm-hmm. Go
Yeah,
into your Dust North stomach and go to hell.
you're like, yeah, no, just grab onto the tails of your
Mm-hmm.
Drifloon and just float on by.
Just well, there's
We
a lot
all
of weird fucking
float.
Pokemon entries, like the Drifloon one, where just kids drift away with them.
Most of the weird ones, let's be honest, are ghost types, and that's why they're my favorite.
Yeah,
But
there's a lot of weird ghost type and psychic type ones. Yeah.
yeah, like how Drowsy can just steal your children, I believe.
Yep.
Yeah, or like hypnotizes them,
Mm-hmm.
walks away, never to be seen.
Anything else to talk about?
I guess we'll just touch on this last topic and then we'll end it off here. Like, do attack animations make Pokemon battles?
Absolutely, in my opinion.
I am in agreement, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Because the whole
every
yeah.
generation from generation one has been not necessarily increasing the way you play the battles, but increasing the making the imagination of what's happening less and less needed,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like let's take generation one's flamethrower,
Yeah.
right? It's just a line of like flame textures,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just very simple, flying around, then you take damage. Now it is a full plume of like flamethrower. It's not like individual sprites, it's an actual stream going out and hitting your
Yeah.
opponent. And that's a lot more interesting.
Absolutely.
Right? I think that a lot of the more unique ones like Earthquake and Fly just make it a lot easier to be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, this is my Pokemon doing it. That's kind of cool,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it's cool to see your Pokemon like showing off their powers. And like we said before, it's less about the battling at this point and more about the bond between you and your Pokemon and sort of
Mm-hmm.
all the visual aspects that come with that, you know. You can't
Yeah.
bond with your Pokemon if it feels like a lifeless hunk, using Tail Whip and it just pivots on the spot.
Yeah, now that's what I want to talk about. Specifically, the models of Pokemon are kind of lacking. The effects on the actual moves, like
the,
Earthquake,
the
Flamethrower, Flame
effects
Blast, whatever,
are there,
are fine.
the models are decent, the animations are what is terrible. It,
Yeah, the animation on the model specifically, right?
absolutely.
So let's take Tail Whip, for example, as you said. All that Tail Whip does is it takes the Pokemon, flips them 180 on the Z axis, if I remember correctly,
Mm,
and then just an animation of a tail waggle and then flip back. Like, it's not selling,
no.
right? And like with any like in wrestling, the whole like everything's fake in wrestling, right?
Hmm.
The
It's
whole
all
part
about the
about wrestling,
visuals.
the sell. It's all about selling it,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Pokemon don't like the actual models and animations
This is
don't
why
sell a lot of
XD
these
was my
moves.
favorite Pokemon game and why I played it so much because there's impact to a punch in that game. If you
Yeah,
strike a Pokemon with an attack, they will like flinch
fall
in
over.
damage. They will hurt. And it's a little, you know, over the top sometimes with some of the ways these Pokemon get hit, and you don't really want to see
Yeah,
that because it's abusive. But it does make it a
kids.
living, breathing world. And when you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to sell your game based off, interaction with your Pokemon and them feeling like a lifelike entity, I'm not going to pay like what is it, $10 for whatever the new iteration of Pokemon Bank is, Pokemon Home, to trade in a
Yeah,
Pokemon that I'm supposed to care about and feel is, personally attached to me and is alive, but it does not look like it at all, right? Why would I get
mm,
invested in it?
exactly. I feel like if anything, there shouldn't be that much recoil animation, like the Pokemon getting hit.
Mm,
They should really sell the attack animation
yes.
though,
They
right?
gotta sell the attack.
Because
Absolutely.
because yeah, it's true that that you can come off as abusive to
Mm-hmm.
Pokemon if they look like they're in
Yeah.
actual literal pain,
Mm.
right? But once again, we're dealing with digital animals here,
Yeah.
and second of all, we're trying to sell off the power and the
Mm-hmm. You
coordination of
you
you and
do
your
need the
Pokemon, right?
recall because just seeing the uninterrupted idle animation of the enemy's Pokemon really does not sell get them getting hit by like a focus blast.
If anything, they could if they really like once again 800 Pokemon. But
Mm-hmm.
if they really wanted to if they once again do another as people have been calling it Dexit,
Yeah.
like reduction in numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reduce the numbers and then give like let's say 200 Pokemon,
Yeah.
each of them 2 recoil
Mm-hmm.
animations. One for weak, one for strong.
Yes, absolutely. Here's the thing about
And
Dexit again. Like, it's always sad that you're gonna lose this Pokemon, but there's too many. And by decreasing that amount that's in that individual game, you have more purpose to buying the next game. And not only that, but you can balance the current game better and put more effort into things that need it. We got that.
mm-hmm.
They did that, but they didn't put in the time and the effort to balance the game, nor did they put in the time and the
Yeah.
effort to polish the game, even though they cut so much content still, which
Yeah.
is why people don't want to see that in the future. But if they were willing to put in that sort of balance of give and take, then it is really
Mm-hmm.
good in concept for that to happen.
I find that if they decided to cut more
Yeah.
Pokemon, they should, if anything, cut down to 150, right, and then add only 50 Pokemon if they really wanted to,
Mm.
right? Like cut down to Generation One
Yeah.
numbers,
So
and then with your
151,
current
and
resources,
then you put in like 50
right?
extra as the
Yeah, you
DLC.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, not like just add that, and then push in more personality to the ones that you chose,
Absolutely.
right?
Go Monster Hunter
Right,
with
like,
it. Monster Hunter has a lot of monsters, and each generation they put in a few, but then you pay the DLC to add in the other ones, and it gives them the time and effort to really redesign and revamp and build up each individual monster,
mm-hmm.
and give it
And then
personality.
like what they could do is just actually, you know what? Let me throw you an idea
Alright.
here, right? So let's say we make a Generation One remake, right?
We just
In the
did
new
that. Let's
current
go.
system. Let's not talk about that.
Alright.
But let's say you make a remake of Generation One
Mm-hmm.
with all 151, and then do the upgraded animations for them,
Yeah.
right? Every year to that one game, to that remake, let's say you add a paid DLC to introduce the next generation of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
And then just keep on doing that until it catches up. And then at that point, you'll have paid off the cost of making the animations through one game,
Yeah.
and then have the ability to reuse them for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what I was thinking, right?
Yeah.
So then you can still play the game. You'll have booted up, and there'll be a reason, because let's be honest, we have a lot of Gen 1 people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who love Gen 1. Yeah. And they will pay for something like that,
Mm.
right? I would pay for something like that, even though I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily a Gen 1 player, right?
Mm.
Because F it, I love the game. I love the series.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. I'll be happy to literally play the game for that, and I'd probably pay for DLC just to
Yeah,
see.
I
hey,
prefer paying for DLC than getting a whole new game.
yeah,
I
I
like
would
that
pay
change.
DLC for that, right? Like just so then they can introduce this
Mhm.
increased model and action sets to make it more believable,
Absolutely.
and as well as to give your Pokemon and the Pokemon in
Mhm.
general something more punchy, right?
Yeah.
Something more feeling like they're alive, and not just a sad Sobble looking at me with dead eyes.
Oh man.
Yeah, no, that's just nice,
Yeah.
right? And I think we're going to end it off
Yeah,
here.
I
We're
agree.
almost pushing the 2 hour mark, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. Any last words before we end this? This has been Raphael.
This has been Ethan. We are both game designers.
Yeah, no, and yeah, this has been the work in progress name Untitled Game Design Podcast.